Hello, it's Michael Kelly. I wanted to talk about one of the early books from the Apophis Club at this stage, um, and it's one of the ones which is perhaps least understood by people who are looking at what's now quite a lengthy list of books and wondering which they should have. Um, it's Dragonscales. This was the third book published after Apophis itself and Igesjalm, which was the runic curriculum based around the Apophis work. And Apophis was published in 2009, but the curriculum had been around for a few years before that. In its current form, it started taking shape in 2003, but the principles underlying it, and I'm talking particularly the concepts of the magic of the void, the magic of desire, they go back to it would have been about 1999, I think. So they were actually the last century. And quite a number of things had already been written concerning the work. Now, Apophis was a compilation of many of those early articles which appeared in the Trail of the Serpent and in the newsletter of the Order of Apep, as it was then. And I had to make some decisions to leave some things out because the book Apophis I wanted to be focused in tightly on the core curriculum. And so there were all manner of interesting articles and so on, which were really worthy, but were kind of tangential to the main core of the curriculum. And that doesn't mean that they're uninteresting. It doesn't mean that they're not important. It just means that they didn't fit in that narrow, tight focus for the book. And this is the problem when you're writing a book. Similarly with Igesjalm, there were a good number of runic papers and so on which had been written and projects which had been carried out, which really were peripheral to just identifying the work of the core curriculum. So Dragonscales was a collection of some of those materials by myself and a couple of others which had been omitted from the first two volumes so that they could retain that tightness of focus. So it's essays and articles of real significance and interest from those early times, just gathered together here in one place because they hadn't fitted in the other books. Now, there's quite a number of pieces in here. I'm not going to list them all for you. I want to keep this video within 10 minutes. But if I show you the table of contents here, you can see they are organized according to the heads by subject matter. So if they'd been in Apophis, that's the chapter they would have been in. We have 3 essays on draconian magic and philosophy in general, 3 dealing with the head of the scorpion, the first head, including using your common sense, including far more detailed descriptions of how to visualize and actualize the postures which are described in Apophis. And there's a discussion of the symbolism of the myth of Vortigern's Tower, which of course comes from Merlin's early days. Same with the head of the thunderbolt. We have the the use of the twin poles of stillness and passion to drive magic. And back to Merlin, we have a look at the charm of making, which was that wonderful charm in Boorman's film Excalibur, which Nicol Williamson's Merlin recites. And I know it's been popular with magicians ever since. It is not something that was made up for the film. It is a genuine incantation in Old Irish, not modern Irish, Old Irish, which translates as serpent's breath, charm of death and life, thy omen of making. It's a really profound, really effective magical chant, which later went on to inspire one of the Draconian Grimoire series of books, Dragon Magic of Merlin. But here it's broken down and analysed linguistically and discussed in great detail. We have a couple of essays under the third head, one of which gives a draconian alphabet, which wasn't supposed to be used for writing things out, but was designed specifically for draconian sigils, which would be unique to this kind of work. We have a lot more substance on the void under the fourth head, and the process of opening the eye, and a path working to stimulate and facilitate that process. No less than 7 essays for the fifth head, including more material on remanifestation, the immortality engine, which is mentioned in Apophis, and the path of the werewolf. A lot of material in the sixth head, including my first study and mythic explanation of the Gorgon, a really powerful female serpent of the draconian path. A couple for the seventh head even, and then there are 3 new papers on the runes, which were incorporated in Aegishjalm. One was an early attempt at a draconian rune poem, which still stands up to this day. It's still pretty good. But the most important paper of all in this volume, to my mind, is one that was written by Faustus, who was my co-founder of the Order of Apep, which later became the Apophis Club, of course. And it's called Volsunga Draka, the drink of the Volsungs. And it is a really profound initiatory study of the patterns within Northern magic. And a very early look at Enochian draconian magic, which of course went on to become a full curriculum in its own right later. And there are a couple of essays in there too by Steve D. And it's a book which will really expand upon the material in Apophis and Aegishjalm. That is why it was written, to collect these other fascinating articles and essays together and present them in one place, rather than have people running around years later trying to find copies of journals and newsletters which had only ever had a very small publication run. So it's there, it's available now. It's individual essays, so it's not a difficult read. You can reach into it and pick and choose what you want to read with Dragonscales. It's a very valuable book still for the material it contains. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you again soon. I've reached my 10 minutes.